So the first question is, where were you born? Where were you raised? And what was your favorite childhood memory growing up?
I was born in Richland Center, Wisconsin. I was raised in the same town. We rented a dairy farm, and the cows were sold when I went to college in '98. So I lived in the same house, went to the same schools, had all the same friends, and I've got friends now that go back, clear back to 1980, 79, 80. My favorite childhood memory? Believe it or not, it was a simple day. My dad bought me a fishing pole for working and pitching hay bales because my brothers refused to help. Boy, it made them mad. We were on the lower edge of poor. I wouldn't say super poor because we had family and support, and we always had the dairy farm for the incidentals. But my parents also got food stamps to help pay for bills. With the farm, the house was provided, electricity, all the utilities were covered, and you have well water, so you didn't worry about that. But there were times when where the next meal was coming from meant sometimes, hey, here's the gun, go get some food. And you know, I hate living like that, but you learn to survive. My clothes, I didn't get new clothes until I was either it came as a Christmas gift, or on the off chance that I made some money mowing lawns and stuff, and I was able to buy my own clothes. Otherwise, it was the thrift shop and Goodwill, that kind of stuff. My parents were really thrifty on keeping things clothed in that, but yeah, it was always fun every year to get ready for school. As a child or as a young adult?
It doesn't specify. It just says that about a time you became aware of the economic forces in your life.
When my mom was crying one year for Christmas because they used to wait until the co-op would cash in a dividend check, and that's how the farmers bought the Christmas presents. And that year the dividend check was 25 cents. And normally they'd been running $200 to $500. So my mom was in tears. She went to the church and asked them for money to help give the kids a good Christmas. And yeah, it wasn't a good time. My dad ended up actually calling a couple cows to make sure we had stuff for Christmas. Anyhow, that's when I got aware that just how tight money can be there. I went to school in Richland Center, Wisconsin, and graduated from Richland Center High School and was accepted to the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. So I went to Platteville. Originally, I was looking at getting a degree in veterinary medicine, but decided to go a little differently and got an animal science route because I loved the cows. So when I graduated college, I accepted a job on a large dairy farm as a herd feeder with the opportunity to become a herdsman. That job moved me from Wisconsin to Plainview, Minnesota. And the job and everything kind of laid out my life for me. I was in Minnesota for about a year when I met my wife, and we started a family. I stayed with her initial job for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then I changed jobs to another farm because there was more of a larger farm, more room for advancement, and that never really came, so then I changed to a third farm. And after 15 years of doing farm work, I'd reached the pinnacle of what I could do, so I decided to just up and change career paths and ended up going to Fastenal and started my current career path as a CNC machinist. First introduction into politics was in '83 when Reagan and Mondale were running for president. It was Reagan's second term. And our school actually had an election, and the kids actually were getting into fights over who was going to win. Obviously, Reagan won in a landslide, and by our schools when that landslide as well. And that's when we really started to look at politics. For the most part, I was actually considered to be farm, agricultural, although I sided with the Democrat view of things. And since the mid-80s, after Clinton left office, that's when a lot of us switched from Democrat to Republican. But that was our first real, you're going to be in the election, this is how you vote, this is how we're voting. And as kids, it was actually a very good experience. And just, you kids get so upset over the simplest thing of who became president. It makes things a lot more understandable now. Hope that makes sense.
How have your political beliefs changed over your lifetime?
Again, I started out believing in the Democrat field. I love Clinton as president. I believe with a lot of the good that they were doing. And as time went on, and I graduated high school, and you started taking a closer look at how what one president did became something horrible 8-10 years later, because the results of anything that they do or pass, any bills they pass, are never immediate. It always affects somebody down the road in a different way. Case in point, they went through and changed the criteria for mortgages. It made a house easier to get. And the problem is people who really couldn't afford houses were getting them. And that was started in Clinton's time. And now here we are. Obama took over as president, and we had a great big mortgage crash because there were so many people who were defaulting on loans would actually crash the price of the housing market. Because they had houses they could not afford, so all these houses were in foreclosure. And that was a change in a law that looked great when it happened, but had underlying and terrible consequences. Another one that we have, which is affecting us now, was way back when Nixon was president. They changed it so that healthcare was no longer not-for-profit.
And what did that mean?
What that meant was healthcare companies, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, could not feasibly turn a profit and be in healthcare. Well, great, fine, and dandy, but when they took that out, now you've got CEOs making millions and millions of dollars, and healthcare has done nothing but skyrocket. They were good times. We didn't have the technology, and they kept telling us that the only reason the human race isn't advancing is because of our lack of information. Well, that was a lie. We got kids that got phones and everything at the touch of their fingers, and they're still idiots. So I think a lot was lost with the fact that it was a simpler time. To get around, a lot of us rode bikes. We were in better physical shape, but we didn't sit down at a computer because we didn't really have a computer. Only the rich kids had computers, and there were very few of those. And it was kind of a much simpler time.
And even then, with those computers, there wasn't much you can do on them, right?
We could play a lot. There were games. It wasn't until you got in high school that computers got a little power to them. But we didn't have cell phones. There was this thing called a payphone. And they only had so many of them in town. So if you're going to call your parents, it'd be a collect call from, I need a ride.
I need a ride,
Yes.
and the time and the place.
Or you call the operator to get the actual time. And then they could give you the time and date, which is kind of nice. Especially if you're setting your watch, you don't your time changes and stuff. But it was a much simpler time. We didn't have to rely on technology because we didn't have the technology to rely on. It made life much easier. We didn't have anti-bullying rules. You just take the bully out back and you guys would settle it out. And I don't know, warning labels were another thing. Our parents just figured, what's the worst that could happen? Stick your finger in the light socket. Well, you won't do that again now, will you? I bet you found it shocking, huh? Now it's like, oh, don't do that, honey. No, we got a warning label on this, warning label on that, warning label on this. And it's the experience that the kids are robbed of.
Bumps and bruises is how you learn.
Well, yes, it's the experience. You know, I do this, I get zapped. I do this, it smacks my hand. I don't stick my finger in a pan. You can only do it once, and you'll learn quickly.
The 80s and 90s.
Well, the 80s we got to actually change over from playing outside to actually having home video games. Yeah, the Atari just came out in the early 80s. By the late 80s, a lot of us had Nintendo. And, that was something kids talked about, and, you played a lot, and you monkeyed around with, and your friends got together. But our parents kept it as a treat because most families only had one TV. If Dad wanted the news, you better not be playing Mario. Before that, we had the VHF TV, which means you had 3 channels, maybe 4 if you're lucky, on a good day. So then while everybody watched the same TV shows, so everybody talked about the same shows during the day. Did you catch a new episode of MASH? That was pretty cool. And everybody else has watched it because that's what you guys all watched. Saturday morning it was Saturday morning cartoons. My dad, he was somewhat of a kid at heart too. A lot of times we'd get up early and we'd watch cartoons. They'd start cartoons at 4:30 in the morning. I'd have a bowl of cereal and we'd watch cartoons. And I'd go back, take a nap, and he'd go milk cows. And that's how we started our day. When I got older, at the end of the day, we'd watch Star Trek. That came on right after the 10 o'clock news. It was kind of our special time because we were the only ones awake at that point. So the simplicity is gone. And there's so many things out to watch. Now you can stream Disney, you can do and see, and things are not. Well, there's only 3 channels to watch, so you all watch the same 3 channels. No, I don't want to watch that, so I'm going to go on Hulu and stream a show. Well, you can't talk about it with your friends because most of your friends have never seen it. I think we're overcomplicated through oversaturation. The cell phones just started to become a thing. I mean, I got a soft cell phone in '96 when I was in an internship. I was one of the first ones in my class to actually have my own cell phone. It had crappy reception. It had a lot of crappy things about it. But it did work, and I needed it for work.
So how did you feel?
Well, there was a couple things that happened. We didn't vote for them, but I was alive to see the Berlin Wall go down, which reunited East and West Germany. We also saw the Cold War come to an end, where we had peace treaties and talks between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, and eventually we ended up ending the Cold War, which brought about a lot of peace and prosperity for everybody. And those are 2 huge changes that we never thought at one point were ever going to happen. I wasn't of 18 until the late 90s.
Was there anything you would have voted on or voted for or against that you didn't have a say in quite yet?
No, not really. I mean, they actually came out pretty good. There's a few laws that got changed that I don't agree with. Well, the biggest one was in the 90s when they made schools gun-free school zones. As a freshman, I went to high school and was able to take my hunting rifle in, and they were able to ogle it and look it over and just talk about it. And at sophomore year, you could no longer do that at all. And to me, that was one of the dumbest legislations they came about with.
As well as removing hunter safety classes from school?
Yes, the hunter safety classes being frowned upon and not being allowed to be at school because, hey, you're not allowed to have a firearm here. It's gun-free. And the zero tolerance policies that started to come out were even dumber. And now they've even gone more extreme on them, which is really almost borderline insane. I don't believe anything should ever be a zero tolerance, because that takes out human judgment. That was another dumb move they came out with.
The DARE program?
Yeah, there was a lot of money spent on that, and it really didn't achieve what it was trying to go. We even went as far as to have the United States go in and put a quote-unquote war on drugs. And the problem is, drug abuse got even stronger and more creative. And it just seemed like it didn't. It just spent a lot of money to achieve nothing.
And with the war on drugs, didn't that essentially, in your opinion, just make drugs even...
It actually increased the value of them.
I meant
no, it increased
like
the value.
ruin them, like lacing them with like...
Well, part of that, but it also increased the value. Because making them illegal made them slightly harder to get, which means anybody who's carrying them gets more money for what they got.
I thought you were meant...
No, that extended to get paid for it, yes.
And some of those mixes included things like rat poison
Oh yeah, baking soda, baking powder, warfarin, all kinds of other stuff got in there. Oh, prohibition.
What was that again?
I would have made the whole war on drugs as effective as prohibition in the 1920s. People still drank, they just got paid a lot more for it.
Oh, how?
It started to improve from the 80s into the 90s because my mom actually went back to work and left the farm. So we actually got more income for the family, which in turn helped make things a much more stable situation.
I'm guessing her employee discount was also really nice too.
Her employee discount was wonderful. But the fact that she actually went back to work and her employer actually offered health care, that made a huge difference.
Didn't Grandma also get to meet Sam Walden?
Yes, she did. She met Sam Walden. Yes.
Want to say something about that?
Huh?
Her meeting Sam Walden?
Well, yeah, she worked for Walmart. Sam used to visit all the stores when he was in his younger days. And he loved going through and checking, making sure they're doing protocol and everything. And she had to ask him for an ID for his check. And his comment was, if my check's not good, we're all in big trouble. But it was actual procedure. And then when she knew who he was, because she knew by looking at him who he was, but she had to follow their steps for what she did. He liked her so much, he told the manager to give that woman another raise. And the manager's like, but, and they had some discussion. He said, the manager's like, I just gave her the max raise. And Sam looked at him and said, give her another 50 cents an hour. I can afford it. It's not going to hurt my pocket. We need to keep good cashiers around, and I hope you guys start to understand that. Call Bentonville, tell them I approve it, and I want it immediate. Which is kind of nice for an owner of a company that big at the time to be able to just go ahead and say that for someone who is supposed to be basically low-level employment.
Outside of having 2 kids and a wife and a family.
Well, right now everything hurts. Nothing hurt in the 80s. Fall out of a second floor window, get up, stretch, and walk away. Now I sleep wrong on the wrong pillow. My neck's locked up for 2 days. The biggest difference is the technology and the connection. In the 80s, if you wanted to talk to somebody, you could call them. If they didn't want to talk to you, they didn't answer the phone. In the late 80s, we got caller ID. So now you can see who you didn't want to talk to and don't answer the phone. And now it's a cell phone, and you can be reached in the vehicle, you can be reached anywhere at any time, and I think it's almost too much. I I kind of mess with the fact where if I'm in the bathroom, I don't use the phone. Or if I'm outside, I don't use the phone. Because, hey, I'm not going to get me. When I'm driving, you can't talk to me. And it was better for accidents and paying attention on the road. Way too many people you look up and say they're on their cell phone and they're not paying attention to what they're doing. As for my life, it was much easier then. I didn't drive. I didn't have to pay for things. I didn't have to, just go to school and do chores. And that was the end of my life.
Say that again?
Now it's responsibility and bills. I'd rather have you raised in the 80s, but you'd have a lot more problems with that. You wouldn't have your cell phone. You wouldn't have internet. You wouldn't even have... You'd have to go around in a car and a bicycle. Of course, you could swear a lot better, and you could use a lot different terms, and nobody would yell, look at you funny. You use certain terms now, they beat you up. And they scream racism, and then you go to jail. Use them terms then, well, you might get beat up, you might not. Somebody might walk up and give you a high five, call you a homie. So, the nice thing was back then, you wouldn't be offended.
Well, I'm not offended now.
Yeah, but everyone else around you is.
That's true.
At least we knew what bathroom to use. And what pronouns to use. Now, it didn't keep your grandpa from being approached at the grocery store by a guy. That was not cool, but, that's the difference between then and now. Now I don't give the guy a hug and say I'm not interested. He said a whole bunch of expletives, and the guy got red and ran away. He's not gay! I'd like to live in the 1980s again. We were on the cusp of major technological boost, but we were still living the simple life. We had great music, we had a lot of friends, and it just seemed like a better time. The 90s weren't bad either. After that, forget it. Life was actually affordable. You could do things on a set salary without having to be. And you could still at that point, if you chose to, have a single income family. But most of my friends said they had double income so that they could afford the nicer things in life. Like vacations and new clothes and that kind of stuff.
But most of the time, wasn't it one person did, the whole 40-hour work week and the other one worked part-time? Or were most of them...
Mostly it was the dad would work 40 plus. 40 was kind of a cakewalk. Usually it was going to be a 50-hour week no matter what. And business was booming and we made things here. There weren't multi-million-dollar CEOs. There were just a few company owners that were up there. And now it's all changed to the degree that's just made things, I'd say, almost tainted and sick.
What changes would you make to get us back to that simpler time and improve the state of our country now?
I don't think we can go back. It's just a memory these days. We're too addicted on technology and too self-isolate. The technology that we've got made it easier to connect, but made us more isolated than ever. And being able to change that would involve a whole lot of changes in the world. Anyhow, the American system will not allow that to happen again. We work on a system of greed, and everybody at the top gets everything. And yet, people are still trying to come here, no matter what. They complain about how bad it is here, but everybody's still trying to come here. So it ain't even that bad. It's not that bad. Anyhow, I just don't think we can ever go back. It's just a fond memory at this point.
Are there any changes you'd make to our political or school systems or anything like that?
Yeah, our school system needs to get its butt back to the basics. We actually need to start teaching kids to be competent again.
Hold on.
Get back to the main basics. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that should be the sole focus of every child's education. And then add in the rest of it as an add-on spice, not as, well, we got extra time for this, we need time for this, we need time for that. No, you really need to be able to make the kids functional in a society. Reading, writing, arithmetic first, and then the home economics we took away. Home economics and shop would be huge to bring back. Make people functional adults when they're graduating high school.
Also teach them things about like finances,
which goes along with being a functional adult.
So that way, then when kids graduate high school, they already know what they
They know enough to take care of themselves.